Alrighty, everybody. Hello and welcome to the Corning Museum of Glass. Welcome to our late show. Tonight we're featuring Helen Tegeler right here in the black shirt. Let's give her a warm welcome. Awesome. Thanks, everybody. We also want to welcome those joining us online through the live stream. Thank you for joining us. If any of you have any questions, shout them out, let me know, or type them in. We'll get those answered. I want to introduce the rest of the team here. We have Chris Rochelle. He's going to be assisting Helen make her piece today. My name's Katie. I'll be narrating and also assisting. So if you have any questions, let me know. But today we are making an acorn, and we're going to put a squirrel on the acorn. It's going to be awesome. Helen has done a lot of these pieces recently. Helen, I'm going to sneak right behind you. I'm going to put one of these up. Can I do that, Helen? This one here? Okay. To get you guys an idea of what we're going to work today with. This piece is also done by Helen right here. There we go. A squirrel. That's a great idea. All right. So she's got a lot of these pieces put away in the garage. The garage is like a babysitter for glass. It's about 1,000 degrees right now. You can put things in that garage. They're in the pickup box, aren't they? Yeah, they are in the pickup box. Okay, my bad. They're in the pickup box, which is still a glass babysitter. It's just not the garage. The pickup box is over there. It's that black box over there, set at 900. And so we're going to start now with the acorn. We're going to work on that first. So she's got a little bit of glass on the end of a blowpipe. That blowpipe is made of stainless steel. She has a color bar melted onto the top of that piece. Helen, what color is that? A pink. So she's got that on there. She has a bubble in it as well. Now this is the beginning of all glass. We want to have a small bubble, at least to begin with, and then gather glass over it. We usually start with color too. So she has both of those. Right now she's gathering out of our furnace. This furnace holds about 1,000 pounds of molten hot glass sitting at 2,100 degrees. And it stays up at that temperature for a very, very long time. We have not turned it down in the 5 years this amphitheater has been around. And it stays up that long because it takes too long to come down and then back up again, so we'll keep it up the whole time. But she has a nice layer of glass over that color. She's now organizing with a wooden tool called a block. So she wants her glass to be as even as possible, and that is a great tool to use to even that glass up. You can see her inflating a little bit, adding a bubble in there, trapping her air with her thumb. That was the addition of the bubble. So this wooden tool that she's using is called a block. It is made out of cherry wood. We use cherry wood in the hot shop because it burns less. We also keep it submerged in water so that we can use water as a cooling agent to cool that glass down as we shape it. We also want to give some shout outs to some family. Helen's got family watching. She wants to shout out to Marianne, mom, and Bill, his dad. Let's see, Cheryl and Billy as brother and sister, niece Grace, and nephew Noah, and newest addition, William. That's wonderful. Yeah, I think my parents are watching. Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. That's lovely. All right, so we've got a gather over that color. We're going to let this cool down quite a bit now. Now, cool means only probably about 1,200 or 1,100 degrees. Cool means rigid. So I would say just as rigid as the pieces you see before you. You want to gather over that at that rigid state so that you can have some stability, something to gather on. So here goes that second gather. All right, so she's got that second layer. Now again, we want to organize this. We want all of our glass to be even always. Organizing and getting it shaped up is great. If we start working with something with some thick areas and thin areas, it's going to expand. Weird, it's going to start shaping itself in a weird way. So we want to organize this. This one is one of our favorite tools. This is called a pad of newspaper, or newspaper pad. It's because it's made out of about 7 or 8 sheets of newspaper. The Corning leader specifically. So we can just fold that up and keep that wet as well. Makes for a really good cooling and shaping tool. Works similar to the block. However, we can shape it differently because it's kind of a loosely shaped piece of material. You can see steam rising off of it as she stops using it. And now this is all the beginning of the piece. This is the beginning, of course, but the beginning of the stuff. We have a cup in there that we're going to add glass into, and that will be the outside of that piece. So we made a cup so that we want color to be on the outside. So if we had, you can see really well this color, it's kind of really behind all of that clear glass, right? Which it will still be a nice background for the color we're about to add, but we want that color on the very outside. It's really hard to get a larger piece with all the clear on the outside and have that color still shine through really well. So we made a cup instead. We'll put instead that clear stuff inside that cup. You'll see that in a second. So it's sitting upright inside of our kiln. It's about, probably about this size, honestly. She's going to stuff it through that top opening. Here's her third gather. Now watch as she brings this out. She's going to drip this into that bucket. You can really see how much our glass moves at this temperature. This is called a strip gather. She has her third layer. Once again, organizing that. Now she knows how much glass she needs. She has a lot of different things weighing on this. She needs to know how much glass she needs to have to be able to stuff inside that cup. If she has too much, he won't get a really good stuff. If she has not enough, she's going to get too good of a stuff. She also needs to know however much color she had for that clear to make sure that that color doesn't blow out as well. So a couple of different factors in this. She's actually going to cut some of this glass away. She's segmenting it, bringing it out and away from that piece. Now watch, she'll cut right through this with this tool called diamond shears. Wonderful. The help from Chris Rochelle. This reheating chamber is at 2100 degrees also, so it has no glass inside of it. There's only glass inside that big one. That one has no glass, it's just heat. Same with this one over here, just heat. It's very, very warm. So we'll use that to reheat our glass. You'll see, you've noticed that when we go to gather, we cool our glass down to where it stops moving. If we stop moving our glass, we can't do anything with it. So if we're trying to make something and it cools down too much, we have to go back in and soften it up again and heat it up inside that reheating chamber. So we'll go back and forth from the bench, which is considered to be the workstation here, to that reheating chamber quite often. That being said, glass also needs to be kept warm. So even though we might be working with our glass staying in a rigid state, we'll still need to heat it back up a little bit, or else it will crack and it will break. So you'll see us do what we call flashing, which are quick heats. But that is not happening yet. That will happen later. All right, so here comes the stuff. Now watch, Chris is going to open that kiln. Helen's going to jump up all that block and kind of push the glass into the cup. So there's the cup inside there. See how she sized that just perfectly. She'll push, 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 and as it kind of attaches itself to the walls of the cup there we have it. What do you say, guys? That's pretty hard to do. Thank you. Has anybody here played the game Operation? That's a lot like that. Yeah, you've got kind of one shot, and if you touch the sides, it's not going to beep at you, but you're going to ruin the whole piece. So it actually catch bubbles in there, which is actually a really bad thing for glass to have really large, inconsistent bubbles. You might see small little bubbles that look nice. Those are fine, but a big, huge bubble in something like this would cause our piece to break during annealing. So she did really well, measured it just fine. And now that cup was at 1,000 degrees, she put her extremely hot glass in there, probably about 1,800 degrees. Brought it out. Now she went immediately into that reheating chamber so we can add more heat to that glass. And so if you look closely, which you might get a shot too, but she's got all these kind of layers here. I believe these are canes. So she's going to kind of marry the back. So she's going to seal the cup lip to the back of the piece so that it's all one seam. We don't want any seams on this. Helen, are you gathering over this? Are you gathering over this? Okay, awesome. Me too, yeah, great. All right, so this is going to be her kind of final addition for this piece, except the top part of it. So we even have to add that one differently too, which is a really awesome process to watch too. So she's going to get this well organized and marry the back to the back part of that pipe, and get it all kind of smooth, and then we'll start to shape it. So a really great way to tell what temperatures we're working with is to notice the color. So you know how hot the reheating chamber is at 2,100 degrees. See how bright it is? That's what 2,100 degrees looks like. So this, as it gets colder, it'll start to get redder and redder. So you can tell as the heat goes away, so does the light. Great way to tell heat. That's something that us glass blowers look for as well, is the color of the glass, but also we look for the movement of the glass. See how it moves, and then we can judge from then. So she's going to go right over to this pipe cooler. She's going to cool this pipe down. Now our pipes don't get so hot that we can't touch them except for in one area, which is farthest or closest to that glass, which you can tell is a little darker. When metal gets hot over time, it begins to tarnish. And that right there is too hot to touch. So she did cool that pipe down where she normally handles the pipe, which is in the shiny part, a little bit farther off. But because she did that, because sometimes that heat kind of meander back down to where our hands do go. And if we wanted to be more comfortable on the pipe, we'll cool that area down so our hands can get back up. That also gives us more leverage, right? If we have something really kind of heavy far away from us, it's going to be harder to handle. It's going to feel a lot heavier. So to cool that pipe down so we can get some more leverage is a very smart idea. Right now she is adding a line into her piece. You okay? No problem. Let me get these out for now. This line is really important. It allows us to break our piece away from the pipe. So it's like a score line. We're going to break it along that score line later. So she's going in for more heat. She wants to continuously shape this. She knows what size that she wants to get to. So once she gets to that size, they'll transfer it and add another top to it. These two working very well together. You'll see that Chris Rochelle will blow into the back of the pipe as Helen creates that line. So teamwork is very important for glass makers. In order for us to make anything, we do have to have help. It's really hard for us to do things on our own because we have to constantly handle the pipe and keep it moving at all times. So you can see, you saw earlier from our strip gather that our glass moves like honey. So if we ever were to stop turning, it would fall towards the ground or at least become off-center, off-kilter. We always want our pieces to be as even and as on-center as possible, much like throwing on a wheel. If anybody has any experience doing that. So having someone here to assist helps kind of free up our hands. Now the part attached to the pipe is going to be the end. So it's going to be where the acorn ends. I believe so. You can really see those colors come out. Our reheating chamber also has a succession of doors which allow us to, of course, make a larger hole for us to go into. The larger the piece gets, the more those doors will open. And if it gets any larger than the actual capacity of that reheating chamber, we have one right next to it called the jumbo reheating chamber. And we can make jumbo things in that one. So again, reiterating that line, very important to have that not only there, but to a certain diameter. So a larger line there, that's called a jack line or a neckline. The larger it is, the harder it is for it to break off. The smaller it is, the easier it is. So by going back and reiterating that line, she can make it a lot smaller. Helen's also holding this down towards the ground to get some gravity in it, which means that she's elongating it. So anytime you see us either holding the piece up or holding it down, we're trying to either have it expand or have it elongate by holding it down, or squat by holding it up. So letting gravity kind of shape that piece for us too. It's one of the easiest tools we have, but it's a tool nonetheless. All right. So they are going to make the top here in just a minute. I think she's still continuing to shape here. And that top's going to go on that area farthest from the pipe, right, Helen? Top's going to go on that bottom there?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Just gonna squeeze that down a little bit and hand this off. Actually,
Okay.
big bubble. You don't need to roll it yet. Just get a good double dip.
No color on it?
Color's gonna be on the very outside.
All right, these guys getting their plans figured out. So Chris is going to start that other bubble that will go onto the piece. And so it's kind of like we are adding two bubbles together. We're not going to melt them in together, but that extra bubble is going to be the top of the acorn, which has a specific pattern in it. So we'll use one of these molds down here to add that. What's that? Yeah. I just spotted a large acorn and a large squirrel by Helen as well. If any of you want to come and see this work up close, come on down. You guys can see it. But yeah, so she's been doing these a lot this summer. And they're all looking amazing. Awesome camera work. Thank you, AV. Okay, so while Chris begins this part, Helen's going to kind of babysit this one herself. So she's not going to actually put this away into that box. She's going to keep it warm because she's still going to use that one now. So things that we want to save for later is what we put in the box. These two, once again, coordinating. You see she's going to hand that part off to Chris, and she's going to start working on that bubble as Chris babysits that other one. She's going to make this part here some green, and we put some green out. Do a couple gathers out of our furnace as well. Now this is going to have the texture of, got that? Yep. The texture of a diamond facet mold on the outside. So let me try, this is a really good cup made of diamond facet. So the diamond facet's sitting right over here, the big brass mold. She's going to use that to put that texture on, but that is what it looks like cold. Is that right there? You can see it pretty well in here. The dots is what really comes out of that. So Helen's going to get a couple more gathers, at least one more gather. Now she's using compressed air to really cool that glass down, and herself. Yeah. Again, we do have to gather over something that's a little colder, or else it's gonna be really hard to handle that gather, bringing it out. So that compressed air pretty much just freezes the glass, gets it really colder faster. Here goes that second gather. And back to the pipe cooler. So we do have a pipe warmer and we have a pipe cooler. The pipe warmer is right over there by Brad, our cameraman. And the pipe cooler is right here. So the pipe warmer warms our pipe so that we can gather glass out of our furnace. Without a pipe warmer, we would have to manually warm them in one of our ovens. That or our glass would not be picked up. So hot glass only sticks to other things that are that temperature, so our pipes have to be hot as well. This stuff that Helen is rolling through is called Frit. So it's little granules of crushed up color. She can just roll through it, heat it up, and watch as she comes back. You'll notice that all those little dots and like kind of crushed up granules are all melted in, and they're also a different color. So they're warm, just like we mentioned earlier. Now this is a really quick and easy way to get color on a piece. It's also a great way to do it. Now she's got a couple colors up here. This one is gold brown. That's one she's rolling in now. It's very similar to the colors that she uses a lot. And then, she's got rosetta green. Rosetta green is kind of a springtime green color. I would say it's transparent. So is the brown. So you notice that Chris over here is turning the pipe and heating the pipe. He's also putting emphasis a little bit on the back of that area. So he's keeping it hot but not too hot, and cold but not too cold between that area of the rigid glass before it's too cold that it'll break, and also too hot so it doesn't move. Does anybody have any questions while we're kind of getting these two pieces ready? Awesome. Yes. Say that again. Did she put that into the object? No, she didn't. Now, what's on the surface of that is cane. So those stripes there, I guess I haven't explained cane yet, but I will. It's a great question. Thank you for that. So cane is little pieces of glass. They're kind of rods of glass that have color on them. Now, traditionally, they are added with color bar, which is a thick piece of color, and then you add about maybe 3 or 4 gathers of clear. You stick that other end up to another pipe. You stretch that the length of this. Then you cut those colder rods. They're about that tall. They're honestly really kind of skinny. That's cane. You can do that with any color. You can do that with any kind of pattern as well. So she did this with a lot of different powders and frits. She pulled a lot of this cane, then she lined it up, and then she rolled that up onto a bubble. Does that make sense? Yeah, so that's cane there. Yes. Okay, no problem. Yeah, so cane is a very traditional way to make glass. Now it's taking something that's flat and rolling that up into a bubble. So taking a sheet of glass, you put all the canes down, then you heat that up, and that becomes a sheet, which can then become a bubble, as long as you roll it all the way around and close off that hole. That's how she got that stuff there. Okay, so Helen here has a line in this. She also pulled that neck out just a little bit, which is going to be that top of the acorn. So you saw her earlier go into that mold. Now you see those the texture on the outside, the diamond facet texture there. Here right now she's going to size it. So that diamond texture mold is comes in many sizes. This one is a bit smaller, but it does have all the diamonds inside there. You can see that. Challenging mold to go in and out of safely, because all those things kind of act as little grabbers. But it presents a very nice pattern on the outside. And so she's going for physical texture. Usually we do use those molds for physical texture, although sometimes we can use them to put bubbles in glass to change the color inside, or not the actual color, but the color pattern inside of our glass. The torch that Helen is using, and then you also saw Chris use, is called a bench torch. Those torches are at about 2200 degrees, so a little bit warmer than our furnace, but they really act as a great spot heater. And that's what torches are generally used for, is for spot heating. That means that we only want the glass to move in just that area that we heated it up, so that spot. Now Helen here is shaping this so that it will kind of be evenly added to this piece, so that it has a nice coverage to come all the way down to look like an acorn. So she wants it a certain size and a certain width. She's really focusing on that now. All right, so she's got kind of a cap going. Just chatting as well, these two. Now, she needs the heat to be hot on her end and also on his end because remember, hot things stick to hot things. You don't need the temperature to be exactly the same, but you do need them both to be warm enough so that when they do come together, they will fuse together. Okay. So Chris is sitting down with this piece, heating it up. Helen's gonna bring this over. She's also spinning it out so it gets wider. She's gonna bring it over and then they're gonna break that part off. So here comes the stick. Just like that. She's gonna push it on quite a bit. Then she's going to push it on with the paddle here. A little bit of water on that break off area. A light tap. That broke away. Awesome, yeah, round of applause for Helen. They can be very nerve-wracking when you have two pieces out of heat for that long. In order to break glass, we must get it into that vulnerable temperature below about 900 degrees and break that away. Water helps, a cold tool helps. You saw both of those methods used, and even then it was still a little hard to break off, which means that it was warm, which is a good thing, right? But they got that off just fine. Great job, everyone. Okay, so she has the acorn. She's gonna kind of get that top a little bit more pushed on, shape it up a little bit longer. And then they can add the squirrel. I'm not sure. She'll punty it there. I believe she's gonna punty it on the bottom. So she's also gonna add a lovely little grass area that will go on the bottom of her pieces. So you can see them on some of the acorns she's made. It sits flat that way. Acorns are round. And instead of creating a flat area for it to sit on, you know, maybe either in the hot chop or the cold chop, which you would grind it in, she kind of just added a little accent of nature of some grass on the bottom. And then therefore she can flatten that and then it'll sit flat on any surface. So being a glass artist, you really have to think not only about what you're making, but how you're going to present what you're making because it is glass. Glassblowers are often used to just presenting vases and functional work that has flat bottoms. So when you get into the sculptural part, you start to really kind of think, how will I display this? Will I have it on a stand? Will I have it on a wall? Will I have it on a pedestal? Things like that. So it's clever thinking on Helen's part.
I want to build a body on this pipe and then so I don't have to.
So she is going to punty onto the grass.
Like the body will take, it melts a little bit more.
It's alright with you. I'd like to get back a little bit when you put the body on.
All right, now she's pushing that acorn top over onto the top of that piece. You see the paddles on fire? Looks pretty cool. She's gonna also pull that out a little bit. That's gonna be that kind of acorn stem, which you find on most acorns. And stems can kind of be any shape, so she's gonna just think about what shape she wants it to be. Now, glassblowers have a lot of different tools in order for us to create a piece. So there's a lot of traditional tools, but a lot of new tools because sculpting is reasonably kind of new. But honestly, you can make tools out of anything as long as it's metal and it won't burn or hurt you or anybody else. So the glass blower always has a pair of jacks. Jacks are universal. By that I mean you can use them for mostly everything, so not everything, but these are a pair of jacks. They are made of stainless steel, like all of our tools are made of. But then you have all kinds of different shears for cutting. You even have a shear for cutting and grabbing. And then you can have different kind of tweezers or different grabbers. Like this here was fabricated here, I believe. Maybe it wasn't. That's like a nice grabber. Okay, so Helen here has made what we call a punty, and this punty is going to kind of attach up to this second piece that we have in here. So the squirrel body is about to be picked up. She's going to come right on over here. I'm going to open this up. She's going to stick up the body. Now this punty here is not so hot that it's moving, but not so cold that it's rigid. So again, in between those temperatures. And immediately into the heat. So I'll tell you, that looks like a squirrel. That's great. That's awesome. Once again, Chris is keeping an eye on this piece while that piece gets heated up and then added on to the acorn.
Want that pickup on me back down, Helen?
Now this is a temporary connection, so she's not going to have this squirrel on here for very long. She's just going to make sure that it warms up all the way. She's also going to spot heat certain areas that will then be connected to this part. And then she'll break her punty away from the squirrel body. That torch that Helen's using right now is our hottest torch. It's about 3,500 degrees and can get up to 5,500 degrees. And that one again is for spot heating. We kind of developed that, having that torch in here from watching the flame workers work. I don't know when exactly it did kind of come over into the hot shop. We weren't the ones to do it, but.
Did you put those, that one fork on the bench, like on the bench?
Yes, you got it. Yep. But we thought if we wanted to add small details too, we can have that torch in our workstation. And we can add small details, which isn't very common for soft glass, which is what we're working in. It's considered soft glass. Borosilicate or flame working glass is considered hard glass. So once again, timing and temperature, very important, as well as teamwork. Now the squirrel is obviously not complete. It's just the squirrel body. Now it needs, a squirrel head and a squirrel tail. And both of those things are in the box. They're ready to be put on. And then after that, we're going to add feet and arm. What are these? Sorry, these are hands. Feet and hands, squirrel hands, and grass. So still much to be done here. But this will be added on shortly. Now, Helen has been blowing glass for about 20 years, and she started in college, actually. She learned how to blow glass In college, she got a degree in it. Then she went and got a master's degree as well. She's been here working for the museum for a little less than 10 years. And she actually started with the ship program. So if any of you saw us on a cruise ship, that was our team. So it's very common for a lot of glassblowers to get our start in the in a college setting. The apprenticeships are a little bit more known in maybe European countries. But it's becoming a little bit easier to get a degree in glassblowing because a lot more schools are starting to have that as a degree offering. So all three of us went to school for glassblowing. And it's called a Bachelor of Fine Arts with an emphasis in glass or glass forming or glass blowing, whatever it is that your school offered, but BFA usually. So we do see the art side of it before we see the work side of it. And then we start to really learn all of our skills once we get a job in it. Here comes the connection of the squirrel. So she's going to add this on herself. I grab some tweezers. So she'll stick it on. She will then use that cork paddle to kind of push it on, really make sure that it sticks on there. Chris here is going to hold a tool against it, and voila. We have a squirrel on an acorn. What do you think? Thanks, everybody.
Here's that one flash, Chris. Come on back, and then Katie, you want to start up the legs, please?
Yeah.
So it's going to be let's start on a red stripe. Keep that bit on a red stripe.
All right. So the team has expanded. I'm going to start working on some feet. You can watch Helen over there add on her squirrel as they will go in for lots of heats.
Clean up that little doodah where the honey was. That's fine.
All right. Now there's a little bit of a remnant of that punty. This is what she's getting off now. We don't really want to see how a piece was made all the time. So any imperfections left by adding on pieces will be cut away. Sometimes we can even grind that away.
See if I can.
I find it easier to do it while it's warm.
I want a taper. It's going to be a feeder bit. Okay. What do you got right now? Taper it down pretty tight. Connections are fairly small.
All right, so this piece is ready. I'm going to bring it over to Helen here in just a moment. Start adding the feet. Okay. There's one small foot. You can actually make that. There you go. Little tootsies in there. You can see how small those feet are and how hard it is sometimes to put small details in, but it just looks great with those tiny details. She'll work those in really nicely. And as she does that, I'll heat that up. All right. She also wants those feet to touch down, so she'll get those really warm. The torch really helps to do that. If she were to get that whole thing as warm as she needs those feet to be to touch back on.
Take a oil piece and then I'll take that second foot.
Sure.
Just give it a little make.
Yep. Then she would, she'd have way too much heat and the whole thing would be moving. Okay.
All right, Katie, when we come back.
Okay. All right, so we're getting this hot once again. And of course, we want this hot enough to cut. So see that color as well.
This one had a weird angle. That's all right. We'll put it down in a minute.
All right, look at that. Great. Helen, as an artist, I know is very inspired by nature. Likes to make a lot of natural things. She also has been doing these pieces here. You all can see. We can also maybe get a shot up too of kind of that woodish looking vessel, and then the kind of branches on the top with the acorns and some leaves. Great piece. So she's using cork as this tool here. Cork is kind of a soft material. So she's using something that doesn't burn as quickly as maybe like, paper, of course, but she also doesn't want it to stay too cold. So she could use a newspaper for that in that sort of instance. However, that paper is a little too cold because has water in it, So if she just uses cork, it's not as abrasive, it's also softer. Okay, so that cork paddle is really great. Okay, one little hand on. Now Helen has put her glove on, so we know that her hand's going to be really close to that glass. Generally, glass blowers don't like using gloves because it makes us a little bit more clumsy around our glass. Our dexterity is actually what keeps us safer. However, when we know we're going to be working really close to the glass like she is now, she doesn't really need to act super fast, not she as much as she did earlier, so she could put that glove on, save herself some stress. Okay. All right. Alrighty. Helen, do you want any more of this? Okay. Now, I heard her say that she wants to put the grass on after this and then punch it. That could have changed. I'll let her be the judge here, but that might be our next bit there.
Okay, you want to start off with a ball of green?
Yes, just the Rosetta?
Just raise it up.
Okay.
One good roll is fine. On a 3/4. Doesn't need to be super shaky.
Okay.
Big head.
All right, so I'm going to prepare that grass, just a little bit of glass with some Rosetta green. Helen, will this be enough?
That looks great.
Okay.
Feeling good about that money and everything.
It's moving along.
It's very convenient to have someone else help us glass blowers. Help us glass blowers by having someone on the pipe, which allows Helen to kind of get out of the bench and see that piece, be able to move freely around it and fix anything that she needs.
Try to hang that way through time. And give a little woo-hoo. Okay. Just give it 1 second there, Katie.
No problem. All right, so a little bit more maintenance. You can see the smoke from the paddle, the sparks coming from the ash. It honestly doesn't really hurt that paddle too much. You see that the flames go out right away. She could even kind of hold it. It's a great tool to use.
Go ahead and heat it there, Katie.
Okay.
Just give it a couple seconds to bring it on over.
All right, on my way. I'm going to drop this bit of green here. She can then flatten down. And that will be where it will be. She also wants to make grass patterning on the side, so she can use that tool there, which is a crimp. So she has to act fast. Do you see how quickly she's moving? She really wants that glass to be shaped in the hottest time possible, and that's now. So the more that she were to heat that up again, she would have to get the whole thing hot to get it that hot again. So she used all of that time to her advantage. She now has to make sure that sits flat. We'll see what she does. She might use a paddle or the marver. So you've also seen us using this table here. We're rolling glass on it, right? But we're also putting things on it. So it is a table. But it's called a marving table. And we use it to cool and shape our glass, kind of like a lot of our other tools. But it's about 1.5 inches thick of carbon steel, which is a really great tool for cooling our glass down. It's probably one of the coldest tools we have. And that's why it's so thick. It's to cool that glass down. Now the word marver used to mean marble. I guess it still does. So marble is what these used to be made out of. However, since the Industrial Revolution, we found that carbon steel is much cheaper. So we went that route instead. You can have a little bit more of a grit to carbon steel. So there is kind of it's not completely polished. So we use that to pull and push our glass, much like Chris is doing right now, to add this punty. He's pulling the glass back a little bit, pushing it off a little bit, just depending on what he wants to shape it like. So she's got that pretty well flattened. She used that paddle there to do so. Now this punty will be attached to that green area, which is kind of weird. So we usually punty things up in that same axis. So we're going to change the axis a little bit. We're going to punty up to the green spots. It's going to look a little funny, but that's okay. This one here? Sure. Yep. No problem. All right, so here comes that Punji Transfer. So we will be shocking that glass in just a moment. Chris will bring that punty up. We'll attach it from that angle at first. Now he'll be maneuvering it just a little bit in order for it to stay on that punty. A little bit of cold air will help that to become a little more rigid. Now this punty is also going to take a lot of weight onto it. So we also have to make sure that that connection isn't too warm so that it's moving. We want it to stay pretty still. Beautiful breakaway. Wonderful job. Shut this one? Okay.
I think what we'll do is I'm just going to work from outside the bench and squeeze that down. That's okay with you?
All right, now we have the acorns flipped over. Now we also have an opening where that point goes on most acorns. You see that she's closed it up.
I knew I forgot something.
Right now she's gonna add a hole. So we have one hole in it now. She's gonna seal up, so we have to add another hole in it. So if we have a sealed kind of cavity of a piece of glass that we put into our ovens, let that cool down, it probably actually might not make it through that cooling down because of a vacuum that begins inside of that cavity. So we have to have some sort of a place to let that cavity come out so that we don't have a vacuum. We don't want a vacuum in there. So she's going to add a hole with this piece of metal, which is tungsten. You can see that hole that she's got there. Great camera work. She's just heating up the actual tungsten rod, not the glass. But it's a really great way to get that hole open. And she did it in a very non-obvious area. So she actually did it right by the grass, which many people wouldn't really see. So she hid that a little bit. So it's not a part of the design. However, it's something that has to be there for a glass to survive. All right, so emphasis of heat once again. You can hear kind of like if you were to blow air over the top of a hole of maybe a Jones soda pop. That's what you would be hearing. But, so she's going to seal that together. She's going to reheat it, get it nice and warm so that she can seal it. She now also has to be mindful of how thick that can be because she can pull that actually pretty thin. So it's something she's going to be kind of conscious about also. And her little squirrel foot's right there too, so she's going to be extra cautious. Pulling with a pair of tweezers. Does anybody have any questions in the audience? If anybody has questions on the internet, I'd love to hear them. Awesome. Well, if any of you want to learn how to blow glass, I highly recommend it. Corning is a great place to start. We do offer beginning classes over at the studio. We also offer small make-your-own classes where you can just come in to make one piece. Has anybody here seen Blown Away? No one has seen Blown Away. Wow, I think it's the first crowd that I've ever asked. No, that's okay. That's great. Because I have a mission for you now. It's to go on to Netflix. If any of you have Netflix, you can watch a show called Blown Away. And it is a competitive glass blowing show where they selected about, I think it's 10 contestants. And they all competed against one another to win a grand prize of working here at the studio for a residency. Sorry, this is the museum. Working at the museum here for a residency. So they would get to work in this state-of-the-art hot shop with that state-of-the-art team and make their own work for about a week. So it's a really great TV show. It just it's very actually extremely entertaining. And they did a really great job of informing the public, of what glass does and why certain things have to be used. And it's really great. And Helen is featured in that final episode. So the final episode, they actually brought in, Helen and Chris were brought in to assist the final two contestants, no spoilers, on to help them build a body of work to then be judged upon for that person to then see who won. So 6 of us went to the studio there and got to help. So 3 on each team, and it was a great experience. These guys just loved it. So If you want to see a cool, fun TV competition series about glass blowing, blown away. And we also have some of the pieces from that show right over there along the wall of the shop there, of the amphitheater. So check those out too. But yeah, it's a great kind of debut of glass blowing to the nation and to the world. And it trended for quite some time on Netflix. Yeah, the word trending, yeah. Trended. All right, so she's got this hole closed up. Now we know that the whole thing has to be kept hot. Remember, that punty has to be kept hot too. If that punty gets too cold, the connection, that really important connection that keeps that whole thing on there is gonna break. So Chris is being very diligent, reheating that piece. Of course, Helen telling him to. These two know what they're doing though. They've both been blowing glass for about 20 years. So Chris knows to kind of get a little impatient if it's been out for too long. Remind her that it does need to go back inside that reheating chamber, and that is what they will do. So she's also closing that up, getting that into a nice round shape, using that torch to do so. We can see really nicely those cane lines in there now. So like I said, traditionally cane is made with little lines. Here's a great piece that's made with cane. If anybody wanted to come up and see that too. More of a traditional type of cane, but again, cane can be made out of anything. Same here, cane. This is cane as well. No problem.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab that that thing. So I'm just going to need you to open the door. Okay. We'll have the head in the tank.
Oh, all right. So he's just gonna reach in there and grab this head or tail. Head first, okay. Great. Now she sculpted these heads herself, of course, and they look pretty darn good. Now she's gonna heat up just that one side and instantly get it onto the neck of the piece. Lots of torches going. And we have a squirrel head. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Ears now. Same. Tiny. Got it. All right. So, can you see all those awesome details in there that she has sculpted? She's added, got the eyes, the chubby cheeks. This looks great. There we go, lovely. Now you can also see some of our colors coming out. When our glass gets below, I think it's maybe about 14 or 1500 degrees, our colors come back. Kind of really see them. Some colors just will not come back when they're hot. A lot of oranges and yellows and greens will stay that odd color. However, this looks pretty great. It's still not 100% true to the colors that it will be when it comes out. But we can still see some of those colors that we've added. Great.
All right, you guys go for a first class, please. I'm ready, Helen. You got a little pointer?
Yep. Ready now?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. One tiny ear. Back to the heat. So the bit that I have is called a feeder bit. We can add bits to a piece. That's what those little tiny additions of glass are. They're called bits. And this is a bunch of bits called a feeder bit. Yes. Okay. And ear. Ear and ear. Well, she's using some flat tweezers there. She also has to sculpt that bit into an ear now, just like she did the feet. Lots of different things to go into this. And the tail is still yet to come.
A couple more touches on that, and then we're gonna be done.
Yep. Yes, I can.
Back of the bunny, like the metal. Good, right there. At the top, the two or the same sort of thing.
Almost there.
All right, back into that reheating chamber. Now we have a lovely camera, so we can see this piece at all times. Usually it would just disappear inside that reheating chamber and come back out. We can see it inside there thanks to a thick piece of fused silica glass that sits in between the camera and the hole.
All right, Chris, when you come back, we'll have the tail.
Yes. All right, here comes the tail. She'll take right out of this box. 1,000 degrees. All right, we have a squirrel on an acorn, everybody. What do you think? Looks great. Now we need to still work on this some. We need to make sure everything lines up, everything's the same temperature, everything looks good before we take this off. Yes.
We're going in the left side of that upper oven. Do a little twisting and then
All right, I put this big hoodie on because I'm so cold over here. Kidding. So I can go inside that oven and put this piece inside there. I can put my top part of my body in there so I can hold it better. So it's better just to be safe. Okay.
is that ready?
Yes. Get these gloves heated up. So we're going to break this piece off, and then it will go into our annealing oven where it will cool down slowly overnight, so about 12 or 16 hours.
Twist the bottom and it'll have up.
Okay, that's great, Helen.
We're going on the other side, Frit. The other side of stage. You got it?
All right, there's the break off.
You can set it on the grass, please. All right.
All right, big round of applause for Helen Tegeler, everybody. You're very welcome. All right, and Chris Rochelle and the AV team. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, all of you at home, for watching. If you have any more questions, let us know.